That's a long walk up here. So, my name is Sonia. I teach at Garfield. We are a proud community school here in the district. Yeah. And so our summer draws to a close, and I had a busy summer, as most of us do. A highlight for me was being chosen by the National Education Association Foundation to join their Global Fellows program and travel to South Africa for a couple of weeks at the end of July. I was proud to represent Idaho as one of the 45 teachers on that trip. And in South Africa, our agenda was packed. We had to split our time between Cape Town and Johannesburg, and we worked with a few different schools, visited several museums highlighting the work of Mandela and the consequences of apartheid, numerous cultural events, and more. I was also fortunate enough at the end of my trip to go on a safari north of Johannesburg, a legit safari with like herds of elephants and lions and hyenas and the baboons with the weird butts. Yeah. It was like the Lion King movie had come to life. And every day that we were there, we went on 2 safari treks, a sunrise and a sunset. And on one of our expeditions, our truck was coming around a ravine, and we saw a pride of lions in the distance, and that's cool enough, right? We stopped, and we were watching the lions, and from the left around the hill, we saw a tower of giraffe, a herd of giraffe coming around, and so all of us are like, lions and the giraffes, and the lions and the giraffes, like 2 dots coming together on the screen, and they didn't see each other. And once the giraffes saw the lions, everything got really still. And the giraffes in particular were like statue still. And the lead bull giraffe, he just stared at the lions. And we thought for sure we were gonna see like an episode of Wild Kingdom right before our eyes, and I did my best Steve Irwin impression, because I think I'm funny. And so it was very intense. And so they just stared at each other. And I'll come back to that outcome in just a minute. The heart of our visit to South Africa was, of course, the work in the schools. Now, we know that under apartheid, British ruled from 1948 to 94, racial segregation, territorial segregation before that, the Dutch colonization for 150 years before that. The country was segregated in every way by race and class. And poverty and injustice consumed the country, and the struggle to end apartheid was fought for almost 50 years. Nelson Mandela, of course, was the champion of this cause, eventually serving as their president after his release of prison for serving 27 years for being an enemy to the state for leading anti-apartheid movements. We spent several days visiting various parts of Johannesburg, and still the poverty is extensive and the surrounding areas are highly segregated. The more we saw and learned, the connection I made was to our own civil rights movement here in our country. What would it have been like for us to visit the South in the 50s and the 60s after things had been desegregated? Not at all. We were fortunate to spend time in a few different schools. The public schools in post-apartheid South Africa are fraught with challenges. One particular school that we spent the whole day at was called United Church School. The school is in one of the projects of Johannesburg, barbed wire on the fences, bars on the windows, locked gates. And in this area of town, there's no particular regular trash pickup, so there's just garbage everywhere and the smell of trash fires linger. The neighborhood's massive apartment complexes actually house immigrants from all over Africa. At the school we visited, there were children from the Congo, Ethiopia, Cameroon, Zambia, and more. And they were so excited to have Americans come to their school. They sang for us and danced, and we ate with them and talked with them, and we each got a student guide for the day. My student guide was an 11th grade boy named Kwame from Ghana. And after a tour of their school, I was able to attend English class with Kwame. And in this classroom, there were no textbooks, only shared copies of poems, a tiny classroom with dilapidated desks and not enough chairs. And to my eyes, they had nothing. Kwame had a single notebook that he takes from class to take diligent notes, and that's it. So my complaints of not having the right color sticky notes that I like in the supply closet seemed ludicrous then, and they do to me now. And so I sat with Kwame, and we analyzed a sonnet by John Keats. And I watched the teacher guide these students, make connections, hold them accountable in an environment that I felt was lacking, because clearly I take for granted the things that we have. And while the room was not decorated at all, she did have a couple of posters, and one poster had a quote on it by John Dewey. It read, Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. Can I get an amen to that? Yeah. And as Kwame and I walked around the school some more, I could see the posters that their headmistress, the principal, had put up around the school. These posters would say, "So you think you're poor?" And then it would give a counter image of maybe a man having to sleep on the street. "You think you're tired?" Counter image. "You think you're hungry?" Counter image. So what I got from that there were no excuses made in that school for their poverty, their lack of supplies, the space challenges, or the enormous struggles that face these students every day. I asked Kwame, I said, "What do you think of your principal?" And without hesitation, he said, "Oh, she loves us. She's mother to us all." And that hit me. A Latin term I learned in my undergrad was in loco parentis, which means in place of the parents. It's a legal term used for anyone who stands guardian over children or in care of a child. All of us in this room stand in place of the parents for 7+ hours a day. Nobody does what we do. In this district, we serve all kids from all walks of life, and we prepare future doctors, business people, city leaders, auto mechanics, and hopefully a few educators. And as we head into this school year, we'll all focus on our content and our specific jobs, and that's great. But the context of the community in which we build, our district, our love, our humanity, our passion is what sets the standards for these kids. As we teach and mentor and model perseverance and guide these kids as we would our own children. And the challenges in our community aren't going anywhere. Housing and food insecurity, that's a thing. The latest nightmare on the night news. Issues of equity, whatever charter school opens up this week to take funding, and even a lack of colorful sticky notes, that's all a reality. But we can choose to embrace and speak the language of possibility. And it takes all of us, from the custodian to the paraprofessional, to the classroom teacher, to the assistant principal, to the board of trustees, it takes all of us. We must exemplify, embrace, and speak the language of possibility to our students for their sakes and for our own. For many of our kids, they are one positive relationship away from a totally different outcome in life. How blessed are we that this is our work? How wonderful the opportunity is that we have to serve in this way, all of us. And so back to my safari standoff with my lion and giraffe friends. So the bull giraffe continued to stare at the lions, taking maybe a step forward, a step to the side, and it went on forever. And eventually, the alpha lion put his head down, and the pride went back to napping. And the giraffe stood another minute, and then slowly walked away, leading his family, leading the herd away. And so all of us in the truck turned to our safari tracker, and we said, "What just happened there?" And he smiled, the tracker smiled, and he says, "A giraffe won't run. He will stand firm and face the lions, as if to say, 'I see you. You can't sneak up on us, you can't hurt us, because I see you.'" Amazing. And so it is with us. Those of us who believe in public education and serve our schools from the bottom up, we must stare down and stand firm and face the lions that may threaten what we do or who we are. From the headmistress in a small town school in Johannesburg to our beautiful city on the other side of the world, our schools are what we make of it. We work in a phenomenal district, and our students deserve the best. And I, for one, am so proud to work alongside you as we raise and teach and mentor these kids for the best future. Let's make it a great year.